Hi everyone, I'm going to talk about adverb clauses in this video. Adding adverb clauses to your writing will help your writing sound more academic, and it will also help you to connect your ideas more coherently. So if your teacher has ever said that you need to work on connecting your ideas in a different way, this video will help you. So first off, what is an adverb? An adverb is a word that shows how something is done. So for example, the student writes. How does the student write? The student writes creatively. Okay, so creatively is an adverb. But adverbs do a lot more than just describe how something's done. And we're not looking at what they do to one word. We're actually looking at what they do to an entire clause, and that's why we're calling them adverb clauses. So now let's talk about what a clause is. A clause is a group of words with a subject and a verb. Okay, so what's a subject and a verb? Well, a subject is the thing or the person that is doing the action in a sentence. So he runs fast. He is the subject because he is the one doing the action, which is run, which is the verb. Okay, so we always have a subject and a verb inside of a clause. Now there's two different types of clauses. There's clauses that are complete, that are a complete sentence by themselves because they have a subject and a verb and a complete idea. And then there's clauses that have subjects and verbs, but they're not complete, okay? And those two types of clauses are independent clauses and then dependent clauses. So again, an independent clause is like a complete sentence because it has a subject, a verb, and a complete idea. Okay, so I can say, he runs to school every day. He is a subject, runs as the verb. He runs to school every day. Makes sense. It's a complete idea. Over here, a dependent clause has a subject and it has a verb, but it does not have a complete idea. Okay? So no complete idea there, and therefore it is dependent. Dependent just meaning it can't be by itself. You can't just put a period at the end of a dependent clause because then you'll create a fragment. Instead, this type of clause is dependent upon another clause, a complete one, an independent one, in order for it to be able to be a sentence or be part of a sentence. So an example of a dependent clause might be something like, because he likes to work out. Because he likes to work out has a subject, he likes to work out. It has a verb, likes to work out, but it doesn't have a complete thought because if you say, because he likes to work out, right? Well, because he likes to work out, what are you saying, right? Oh, if you combine this one and this one, he runs to school every day because he likes to work out. Now we have an independent clause and a dependent clause connected together. A sentence is not complete or a clause is not complete when we throw on an adverb to it. Or in other words, you can call them subordinating conjunctions, and we're going to talk about all of those in this video. But look at this. He runs to school. He's the subject, runs the verb. He runs to school. That sentence makes sense. It's a complete thought. It's a complete sentence, okay? But if I lowercase this h and I just say because he runs to school, now I have a dependent clause. Why did it suddenly become dependent? Because I added this word to it, and this type of word is called an adverb or a subordinating conjunction, okay? Subordinate just means below. So when you add a word like this to a sentence that's already complete, you make it go from being complete to incomplete or dependent. So that's why subordinating conjunction is a good word to know, because subordinating, it makes it go below. So here, now this one, Because he runs to school is dependent. It's not complete. Okay, this is a dependent clause. Now, in order for me to make this a complete sentence, I need to add an independent clause to it, an actual whole other clause with a subject and a verb and a complete thought. So, because he runs to school, he is very healthy. Now what I've done is I've added a new clause with a subject and a verb and a complete thought. He is a new subject, is a new verb. He is very healthy. That makes sense. That's a complete sentence. Okay, so the whole thing reads, because he runs to school, he is very healthy. And this is an example of a sentence with an adverb clause of reason. The word because shows reason. And this part of it is the adverb clause. So let's look at more types of adverb clauses and the words that create them. But before we talk about more of those words, I should point out the punctuation rule here, because this is a great opportunity to learn a comma rule. When you're using two clauses, one dependent, one independent, you combine them together, you've created a nice complex sentence. It's actually called a complex sentence. And that's because you have one type and another type, okay, of clause. One's independent, one's dependent. So when you create a complex sentence, you do need to add punctuation, a comma, at some point. But where does the comma go? The comma goes like this. So in these two sentences, you can see the comma rule. Here, I break it down. I say if you start with a dependent clause, meaning your sentence starts with an adverb, and we're going to talk about those adverbs in a second. But you start with a dependent clause, then you need to have a comma before that independent clause. So, like this. Because he runs to school, comma. How do we know that that's even a dependent clause? Well, you can look for the parts. It has a subject and it has a verb, but now read it again and stop here. Because he runs to school. Is there a complete thought there? Does it make sense by itself? No, it doesn't. And that is because it starts with this adverb, okay? So it's a dependent clause. Whenever you start a sentence with a dependent clause, you need to put a comma before the next clause, which will usually be the independent clause. He is very healthy. There's the independent clause, okay? So this whole thing together is a real nice complex sentence, okay? This is the other way you can write it. It's also a complex sentence. You just switch the order. You start with the independent part and then you end with the dependent part. But look at no comma here. He is very healthy. There's our first independent clause. How do we know? Because it has a subject and a verb and a complete thought all by itself. Because, now here's our adverb, because he runs to school. Because he runs to school, we have another subject and verb, but this clause is not complete because we've started with this adverb or subordinating conjunction, which makes it a dependent clause. Notice no comma there. There is no comma when you start a sentence with an independent clause and end with a dependent clause, okay? You don't need a comma there, all right? Now let's talk more about the types of adverbs that we can use to make sentences like this. All right, so I'm going to show you here some of the common adverb clause time words, frequency words, and words that show relationships between sentences. So let's start with the time words. Okay, so here we see the words after, before, when, while, as soon as, since, until, by the time, once, as long as, whenever, every time that, the first time that. These are all words that if you use them at the beginning of a sentence will create a dependent clause, okay? And in doing that, it's going to require you to use an independent clause. And then when you write that sentence together, you've created a nice complex sentence that has an adverb clause in it, okay? So here's an example with the word when. When she finished her essay, she uploaded it to Canvas. So this sentence is all in the past. You can use adverb clauses in the past, present, future. We can see with the when clause, it's dependent, it's not complete. So the second clause has a comma before it. That's the independent clause. So when she finished her essay, which was the first thing she did, she uploaded it to Canvas. That was the second thing that she did, okay? Here's another example with when. When he finishes his paper, he will show it to a tutor. First he'll finish his paper, then he'll show it to a tutor. You can also use the word while or as. This just means at the same time. So while the tutor was helping me, I began to understand, and those things happen at the same time. I can change the order and I can say, I began to understand while the tutor was helping me. Doesn't matter which order you put it in. Here's another one with while or as. I began to understand as the tutor was helping me. And notice in this one, we put the adverb clause in the middle of the sentence, and there's no comma there. While you're taking your final, I'll be resting. Here, we're using while to show two things will be happening at the same time. And don't forget, you start with an adverb clause, then you have a comma before that independent clause. Another time word that we can use for adverb clauses is by the time. So what does that mean? That means one thing happens before another thing happens or before another time period. So here's an example. By the time I finish English 101, I will have taken 30 units. So the first thing that'll happen is I'll take 30 units. And then the second thing will happen is I'll finish English 101, okay? And I can rewrite that anyway. I can say, I will have taken 30 units by the time I finish English 101. And if I do it like that, I just don't need a comma. That's the only difference, okay? Since is a time word. We can say, since I finished my English classes, I haven't written many essays. This word, since, just means from a specific time in the past until now, okay? So that's why we usually use it with the present perfect. So since I haven't finished my classes, I haven't written many essays. Now, sorry, no, that's not what that says. It says, since I finished my English classes. So since that time, I have not written any essays until now, okay? Now, another thing is we use the word until. This is a time word as well we use with adverb clauses. This word's sometimes kind of confusing, but what it means is, and it's very common, but what it means is to that time period and no more. So let me give you an example. I stayed at Pierce College until I got enough units to transfer. So I stayed at the community college until I could transfer. That means until means to that point and then no more after that. Okay, so I stayed at that college only until that point and then I left. Okay, or here, I won't transfer until I get enough units. Until I get there to that point, I won't be able to do something else before it. As soon as or once is another time word that we use with adverb clauses. So you can see, as soon as I edited my paper, I saw my mistake. So that just means first I edited my paper and then I saw my mistake. So first I was editing and then I saw my mistake. Or here, I'll read more as soon as the semester starts. First, the semester needs to start. Second, I'll read more, okay? Or, once I finish my homework, I always go to sleep. This is what I do as a routine every day. The first thing is I finish my homework. The second thing is I go to sleep. And notice the commas on all of these. On the ones that start with the adverb at the beginning of the sentence, that's where we have commas in the middle. But in the sentences like this one, where we have the adverb clause in the middle, we don't have a comma because we start with an independent clause. So as long as, whenever, the first, second, or last time that. These are some more adverbs that we can use to start adverb clauses for time, okay? So I hope that that has helped you. There's another type of adverb, and these are the kind that help us show the relationship of cause and effect between different sentences, different ideas. So the main words that we use for those are because, they show the cause of something, or now that, which also shows it means because now, okay? And then we also can use the word since, which is another way to say because, okay? Since has two meanings. So look at these examples. Because I didn't understand the assignment, I asked for help. So this shows why, cause. Why did I ask for help? Because I didn't understand the assignment. Because I didn't understand the assignment, I asked for help. Cause and effect. Or you can say, I always ask for help because I like to work with others. Why do you always ask for help? Why? Because I like to work with others. Now that I have passed my English class, I'm more confident about writing. Or you can use because. Because I have passed my English class, I am more confident with writing. It has a similar meaning, okay? And since the class was canceled, we had more time to work on our papers. Or it could mean because the class was canceled, we have more time to work on our papers, okay? So that's the adverb clause with cause and effect words. We also use adverb clauses to show contrast, and this is the most common and useful type of adverb clause, in my opinion, because these ones are very common, and I think that sometimes students get a little bit confused with how to use them. So here's the words: even though, and although. These words all have the same meaning, okay? So you can use either one, any of them that you want, and they're used to show an unexpected result, okay? So, for example, even though I didn't study for the test, I got an A. So we have our dependent clause and then our independent clause. But the relationship between those two words is an unexpected result. And how do we know that that's the relationship? Because of the word even though, okay? So I didn't study for my test, so I shouldn't get an A, but I did. So even though I didn't study, I got an A. That's a surprise. That's unexpected. Okay, or you could say, although I studied hard for the test, I didn't pass. That's also unexpected. Maya didn't see a tutor, though she needed to. She needed to, but she didn't see one. So that's unexpected. You can also show the opposite relationship or contrasting relationship with while and whereas. So while you are good at writing in Spanish, I'm good at writing in English. It's a contrast. It shows contrast. It's not showing that two things are happening at the same time. In this use of while, it shows you're good at this, but I'm good at that. It shows a contrast, okay? Or you could say whereas. Whereas most students work and study full time, you do not. That's a contrast, okay? And an adverb clause. The next type shows condition. Now, I recommend that if you're going to be using and learning more about the adverb clauses that show condition and the subordinating words that show condition, that you should review conditionals, okay? I have lots of videos on conditionals. Conditionals are pretty complex and there's a lot to them, but let me show you the common words, subordinating conjunctions, or adverbs that we use in these types of clauses. If, right? If shows condition. So if I get help from a tutor, I might understand better, okay? Or even if means that the result will be the same no matter what. So even if I get help from a tutor, I might still not understand, okay? Whether or not is a word that we use in an adverb clause. It has the same meaning as if, okay? And it's just more formal. So We can say, whether I get help from a tutor or not, I might not still understand, okay? Or we can say, Maya won't want your help whether she asks for it or not. So if she asks for it, she still won't want your help. She won't want your help whether she asks for it or not. These are conditionals, okay? You can use in case. Miriam will be at the writing center in case we need her to help us. Unless. I won't pass this class unless I learn how to write a 5-paragraph essay. Unless just means if not. It's another way to say if not. So I can say, I won't pass this class if I don't learn the 5-paragraph essay, or I won't pass this class unless I learn how to write a 5-paragraph essay. And then there's only if. Only if just means there's only one way that something can happen, only under one type of condition.